Yo, what's up guys? Today we're going to be looking at the Stark family. Rob Stark, Tony Stark, all of them Starks right there. Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. Either out. We got the Provoke plus Strip on the S2 over here. The skill 3 is pretty much that Ramagot kind of skill. If your HP is lower, you will deal more damage. Only thing is with Ramagot, you get an extra turn if you kill something and then you start healing. This one doesn't really have that. Do you want to put it on Vampire? We'll see. Then we have the Tony Stark on Wind, which is kind of interesting, which is kind of like an inverted Byuncho. He gets attack bar when he has attacked, but this is where it gets interesting. Increases the damage dealt to enemies as total HP condition of your allies worsen. So it's your allies, it's not yourself. So whereas a Byuncho deals more damage when he's lower HP himself, he deals more damage if its allies are lower HP. And by 100% extra damage per defeated ally. You can do some fun shit with this one. Now we have the Light Iron Man, Tony Stark. Skill 2, same as what we've seen before, but the skill 3 is actually kind of interesting. It is a 3-time multi-hit for defense break and destroying their HP by the damage dealt. So this is definitely a siege kind of unit. It is a 4-star, so expect this unit to be seen on 4-star defense. And then we have the dark one over here, which is the LD5 in his family, which has a passive that gives boost to the skill 1 and the skill 2, and has a kind of like a weak-ass Chow passive in there, but I expect this to be buffed. So we get extra attack bar for using S1. We deal additional damage to your max HP by 15%. Let's see if this is something that you actually want to put crit rate on or just pure HP. And then we also have removing one harmful effect if you take a turn when your HP is below 50. Removing just one harmful effect for being below 50% HP is kind of mediocre though. Chow does 2 harmful effects while giving HP and also being anti-heal block. So Chow passive has a little bit more going for him. However, the skill 1 and skill 2 are amplified by just straight up this. So let's see where we use them. Plus, he's the only speed lead. By the way, don't look at my energy. I misclicked. And by misclicking, I mean I clicked this one and then I clicked collect all. Don't do that shit. So first of all, let's start with the one that I think is most funny. And yes, I could see him being used in arena defense and he's kind of going to be annoying and he's going to deal a lot of damage. But Byuncho also does heal, which is definitely maybe a little bit better. But how about we put this thing as a full damage dealer next to a team that is pretty much supposed to die, and then a bunch of team-ups in R5. Because that way, he might be able to deal a good bit of damage, because in the end, if all of his allies die, he has a 500% damage amplifier right there. So I have no clue if this is actually any good. 103k? 99k? Is this really something I would recommend to run though? I'm not too sure about. Is it funny? Yeah, it's definitely funny. So do some of my allies die on this? I think something does die. 60k? How much is that hit? 53k. Wait, why was that hit so much lower on the last two? Maybe there was no defense break on that last 2 hits or something. I don't know. Also, this is not really an optimized team. I can get like 20 seconds in this. So it's not really something I would recommend to run because R5 is pretty trivial and it's already figured out. And there's a lot of things like it's just debuff team, nuking team in the middle. And I wouldn't really recommend this guy as being your main nuker. However, him hitting a casual 100k on every like touch he does is kind of funny though. Like it does kind of add up and it is kind of working for some kind of shape or way. So we have the brand in there. Yeah, we don't defense break. No, there was a defense break. Why is he doing like 50k towards the end? I think he should be doing more damage towards the end as well. Also, not all allies are dead because I keep in some team-ups just to get him more turns in. Technically, he does get his turn from attack bar in the first place because he gets like 30% attack bar every time he's touched in the first place, which is definitely kind of nice. But yeah, just casually smacking like freaking 100k of damage every touch he does with... You don't need an attack buff because he's HP scaling. Well, it's actually not full HP scaling. It's a little bit of other scaling as well. But mainly attack scaling, or mainly HP scaling is what he does. If we get the Oblivion right now, he's not going to do anything. Would have been nice if he did not have the Oblivion right now, because then that would have been like probably 150k hit right there. So let's just keep this running for a little bit, just to see like 150k hit, just because it's funny. Let's maybe put these units to the front to just kind of force them to die just for this thing to hit higher. Okay, so units to the front with a headbutt like that. Pretty much most things should die. We have that unit for a little bit of a stall still. That's where you can see the damage decrease. So I pretty much do like a 20k extra damage for every dead unit. So I should hit like 140k-ish if everything is dead. Not everything fully dead right now. Can we get a... Okay, yeah, that's 144k right there, and there was still one unit alive. So it's kind of hard to get his skill in at the right timing for as much stats as he has, but 144k probably can do up to like 160-ish K if everything is dead. So that's a very nasty nuke right there. But you do need a brand, you do need a defense break. It looks like a good bit of damage, but then in the end, if we compare it to the damage of this Brandia, for example, Brandia will probably nuke this bit for like 400k. So cool and all that the unit on the left is doing like 100k, Brandia just shoots out like a freaking 100 for 400k, which is like still 4 times more damage. So there has to be a difference in that in the end, but it does kind of work. It does kind of work. You kind of have to provide a lot of debuffs. I do have these in here, which does help out a lot with the brand, for example. So in the end, my normal R5 team, where you just make the middle team with the Bilger and the Brandia actually do like the proper on nuking, and the other 2 teams are just full on for protection and just giving all of the debuffs. That part is definitely still stronger out there, and that's also what I would recommend to run. However, if you just do a whatever team in R5, he can definitely fit. Like, if you do a whatever team on something that is kind of bruiser-ish, he will definitely be able to fit in some kind of whatever random team. If we don't get Oblivion, we do get Oblivion every time that happens. Let's see how much he can do on an arena defense. Let's go for the most typical defense that people used to use for quite a long time. Also, in the case of Byuncho, you can go 0 crit and then still crit damage, which is really nice for that unit. On this one, you can't. So we're just going to drop all stats a little bit just to get something in. Let's see if this kind of does work or not. I was hoping that I could fight it with the dot team, but apparently I don't have the dot team in here anymore. Because, of course, a team like this is just straight up gonna nuke it. Like, I don't really expect anything too crazy out of this. Like, oh, it does actually outspeed me, but then it still doesn't matter. So it only would matter if you stun the Tian in that random kind of shape or way. And this way, everything still guaranteed dies. But let's just try to face it with the bruiserish style then. Like, of course, this is a very slow team, and this is also one of those things, since you know how the passive works, you're just gonna focus him first. But if you focus him first, he's gonna be able to do a lot of attack bar gain, because every time you touch him, he does actually get a nasty amount of attack bar gain. That part on the passive is actually pretty nice. But yeah, as you can see, he's not really dealing too much damage if he is just yeah, if everything is super lively, that's the damage just ain't there. So that's one of those things that I think on defense, he maybe not that good, but if you use him in offense, maybe more of like a siege offense, you can play around with the elements that certain elements are most likely to be hit, then you can actually start dealing a bit more damage. But over here, you can already see it's not a crazy amount of damage he's dealing, because everything is just kind of lively, and yeah, it's just not really doing that much in the first place. Let's just get everything kind of lower on HP. Oh, he threat stays, so I have to kill him. Yeah, is he that good? No. Is he kind of funny? Yeah. Is he potentially going to be used on defense and get some crazy replay because at some point everything is kind of dead due to random shit and then he starts murdering everything? Probably. Is he Byuncho level though? I don't think so. So I would probably rate him about an A tier. He's good, he's usable, maybe a low S or a high A tier, like a little bit in between there. He's usable, he's decent, but he's definitely not going to be a best in slot, I think. Unless someone crafts some crazy defense with it that actually really works for him, but I kind of doubt it, because you can just focus this thing down and he's not really going to do that much damage. Worse, if you focus a Byuncho down, he becomes dangerous. And that unit is already figured out in the first place. Plus it heals, has the guaranteed crit. So then moving on to the Firestark. The only feel I have for this unit is using a Talisha. Talisha will drop his HP to 1, or a Vivachel drops his HP to 1, and then you nuke with this. Using this as a defense unit, I think is very tricky, because you actually have to be low HP for this skill to do a lot. Most likely on defense, this skill is just gonna shoot and do absolutely no damage when you're at full HP. So you really need to be low HP. However, using this skill without a interaction where you lower your HP on purpose might be dangerous, because this unit might die before it actually gets his skill off. But then again, how many teams like this do you actually actively see in Siege nowadays? It's a lot of speed leads, or if they have something like this, it's with a reviver. Like, you're also not really using him along that much, right? He does have a lead that doesn't really help him. The lead of the wind one is a lot better, because that actually does have HP. But then what's a good unit next to that? Well, it could be lame and just put in a Nana. Okay, let's first try it without elemental damage and then with elemental damage. Well, I can also just put one specific element to it, and then let's see if we do more on that one. We have some good damage on fire over here. I do have 2 of those. Okay. adding in a little bit of HP. Let's just throw Swift Set on you just to make sure that we outspeed. And Nana I don't feel like reruning, so we're gonna use the World Boss Nana right there. I'm more interested in about the damage on that thing on the left in the first place anyway. So if we give Dark Return and then we nuke on this, 41k and 8k life drain. That is not that much in my opinion. I feel like a Ramagod would do straight up more, but let's check that afterwards as well. If I can do a Ramagod on more damage than this. So we do damage on fire. Do we actually do more? 45k? Yeah, that's supposedly more. Doesn't even kill. The moment you figure out you never actually built this stupid unit, but yeah. He also does 100% from his lost HP, whereas the other unit does 70% from his lost HP. So that's a big difference as well. That's straight up 30% extra damage. But we can still use the unit in here, so let's just copy the whole set over here. Okay, is lower HP because a lot lower on base. Actually, this unit has pretty good base defense. The shield will outspeed me. This is the same team that I used yesterday against or for the Frieren testing. But let's just see if, yep, that happens. Then we're totally fine. Let's just see how much damage are we gonna deal on this one right now. 49k. So Ramagos already does do more damage than the Tony Stark. Plus he gets a self-heal, so he has a lot more protection later on. So, looks like a net 5 Ramagos that actually deals less damage. Due for a buff. Like, sure, he has the S2 that has some potential, and he has like a little bit more bruiser to him. It's not just the skill 1. It's also the skill 3. It's also the skill 1 and the skill 2 where he can strip and provoke. I think he has that one at least. Not 100% sure. I would have to double check if he has to strip and provoke. Of course, we're never going to win this. Do you have to strip and provoke? Yeah, you have to strip and provoke. So strip, provoke, and then also the nuke. It feels kind of off to have that in a kit completely. So he's definitely not made to go for single target nuking right at the start of the combat. But he's also not really made for bruisering-ish, because then you have to bet on him being low HP at the right moment, blah, blah, that kind of good stuff. And also where the Ramagos actually nukes, gets another turn, can start healing. This one nukes and then probably dies himself. Sure, it cannot be revived after battle, but yeah, it doesn't seem that strong in my opinion. So therefore I give Tony Stark on fire a C rank. I don't think it's that good. Could be used, but I don't think it's good. For sure, do a buff. Moving on to Tony Stark on light. As I mentioned, siege defense unit is what I expect, because what do you like in siege defense? RNG. How do you get RNG? AoE defense break is something that really helps. Plus you have AoE strip and AoE defense break in this unit. So that's a pretty loaded kit. Plus you also have destroy. So you're already covering the destroy part without actually having to go for destroy runes. I don't have the unit myself yet, so I have to use it in the battle research. But I'm just going to be placing what I think might be a decent-ish defense with him in there. Something like this might be annoying. Is it going to be absolutely good towards high ranks? I'm not 100% sure, because this definitely has the value where you could Lucian it. Something like this maybe. Only issue is that you don't really have a sustain. And I would like to have a sustain in the middle slot, but you also need to have the middle slot to kind of have an outspeed mechanic. And getting both is a little bit difficult. So let's just see if I rune this up all pretty good. If it can beat my RTA team while pressing auto. Okay, so we got a nasty bruiser lineup with a Orion on some speed, on violent, this thing on a Vile Willer, and this thing on a Vile Will Smith as well. Fighting in with a Tony Stark. We missed a few relics, but let's just see if this on auto gets anywhere or not. Okay, good damage from that Solvike. That was more a Solvike thing than this. Destroyed a little bit of HP, but not the craziest amount. As mentioned, this team does lack the healing. Okay, the full team is going for the only one unit that has self-healing right there. Did get resistance on both of those. There is max resistance on the right side, but not on the left side for this one. We're actually getting clapped with the Vios over there. Yep, okay, still get some. Yep. Threat state on there right now. It is a net 4 against a net 5. We got to keep that part in mind. But yeah, I feel like that other units would probably do more in its own slot. Like, it is decent if someone goes in with a super stally team and then you already have the destroyed in there and that kind of shenanigans. Yeah, but is it really crazy? The Death Break hits consistency is somewhat on the low side. And yeah, I'm not too sure. I feel like for defense on net force, he might have some chance here and there. But do I really see this winning a lot? No, there's a lot of other units that can potentially do a lot more on 4-star defense, I would say. Let's give it one more try. Let's see if I play it on manual. So what if the units actually kind of do their thing, what they're supposed to do? Let's give this a stun right there. And then let's start off with an S2 on you so we can get some provokes in. Provokes into armor breaks into... Okay, now we're looking at some damage. Okay, provokes didn't really do too much. Bouncing ball, and let's just take you out. And let's take you out. Let's just proc 16 times on our own, and then we start winning, sure. 10k damage on the skill 1 defense break. It is doable. It seems okay-ish. Is it really crazy, though? I'm not too sure, but will people use this on defense? For sure. Are there better options out there? Also pretty sure. So I would also say do a little bit of a buff and he might be pretty good. Therefore, I would give him low A tier, high B tier kind of scenario where he's decent usable, but not necessarily a best in slot. Then let's move on to Mr. Tony Stark on Dark, the LD5er. Speed lead he has. Big question is he an RTA unit or a siege unit? I'm not really sure about that. He does have the different skill 2 than the others of the family I've seen so far, which goes for a little bit of sustaining, healing, and that kind of stuff. So I think I'm just gonna throw him in a violent speed HP build, and maybe add in destroy for that, and then let's see how that works out against the team that we just fought in the battle research. And let's just make it an RTA kind of battle style with like an old school Velajul and Chandra. This thing also has near to no attack at all. And he's still, I think the skill 1 and skill 2 are half HP, half attack scaling. So for that part, it's kind of bad. But let's just see how far we get. Okay, a good bit of speed on this one. Same over here. And you're just a bit of bruiser shenanigans right there. Let's see if this does anything in the first place. Because kind of curious to see how well his S2 will succeed on any of those hits. Okay, so I expect you to get stunned. You're not high on resistance. Let's actually protect you as first. Let's hit on that. Let's hit on that. Okay, we got no accuracy over there. Skill 2, so... What? How much damage you did on that S2? Wait, we did so much damage on that. I would have to rewatch that again. Is that Annabelle not ruined or something? That was so fucking much damage. So yeah, definitely it's going to be... Wait, was that a random crit or something that we did so much more damage? Or what was that? Okay, once again, skill coming in. Okay, I guess we just have dark resistance over here. No, wait, that's probably some weird shit of the passive going in. But 11k clean. That's a lot of damage, actually. That is actually a lot of damage. Like, sure, it's not like the most insane amount, but that is for a bruiser fight with an AoE stun kind of shenanigans. That is proper chip damage AoE. That actually does work out pretty well. Wow. Is he by all means crazy good because of that? Not necessarily. It's also, okay, cooldowns of this are kind of low. We do get some recovery, but only if we stun something actively. Once again, going in for the hit. Yeah, it's just clean that exact damage all the time. Wow. Okay. I would say that makes him pretty solid. Like, not necessarily like, oh, he's instantly top tier triple S like the Light Warring was. No, absolutely not, but... Is he good and usable? Just like full HP kind of build. And then even if you just bruiser with it in Siege and you throw him on Destroy, that's a proper bruiser hit already because he's super hard to kill. He's one of the highest distributions between HP and defense for tankiness. And with Destroy, he's just destroying a shit ton of HP while being super tanky all the time. So yeah, I can see potential for him. In RTA, however... HP damage does go down for the longer duration of the fight. He also doesn't really have the protection for the rest of his team because his passive is full on selfish. But he cycles quite a bit of turns by getting extra attack bar from his skill 1. But that skill 2 extra damage, wow, that's actually pretty darn good. It's just that I don't like the activation rate on the stun. Because in the end, the stun rate just goes up to about a 70%, but you recover for every unit that is stunned. That part makes it a little bit weaker. But that plus having a speed lead backup, sure, it's 21%, it's not that much. So therefore, my final verdict on the Dark Stark, I would say low S tier, maybe high A tier, or maybe just straight up S tier in the first place. He's not double S or triple S, because triple S would be a Light Warring on release. Double S is more like a Dark Frieren, I guess, from the previous video. This thing is more like an S, slightly below the Dark Frieren, but I definitely do think it's pretty solid. Video of tomorrow is going to be all of the Fern, so let's see if the Light Fern can actually compete with the Dark Stark. Guys, thanks a lot for watching for this one. See you as always in the next one. Thanks for watching. If you would like to see more guides, join the Discord and check out the content tab for the guide video archive, which contains all of the guides that you might need. Hope to see you there.